So I thought I'd spend a bit of time talking about why we like Tiffany so much as a company. So here are my musings, non-scripted. Um, so when we think about Tiffany, a few things stand out. And I know, not everybody is a brand person, and I don't think I used to be a brand person either, but brand can be important. There's obviously a lot of non-branded and unbranded jewellery pieces, antique pieces made by one-off craftsmen that are spectacular. But what a big brand like Tiffany is able to do is build trust over decades and sometimes centuries. Tiffany has been around since 1837, so we're pushing nearly 200 years. And if I think about our own company and how long we've been trading, so since 2011, really, and we've taken more than 10 years to build up our reputation and trust. What they say about reputation is it takes a long time to build and a moment to destroy. And I think that that's the key thing about brand. A brand that's successful has maintained trust over a long time and managed to keep people interested. And that isn't easy. So whilst I didn't start out as a brand person, having built my own brand, I now appreciate what goes in to building a successful brand. It is constant work to try and deliver what customers want and need. And I think that has to be underpinned by some strong values. I don't think it comes out of nowhere. It certainly doesn't come out of maximum profit. And I've been thinking about this for a while. What does a brand like? What are Tiffany's core values? Is there a singular core value? And I think the conclusion I came to was that integrity probably is their core value, from which everything else stems from. And I think, just as, you can have a core value that is treat others as you'd like to be treated yourself, and that sort of underpins everything, right? You don't have to kind of then go into like specific types of people. It's just everyone. I think if you've got a basis of integrity, everything sort of flows from that. It can even underpin creativity and risk, because the bottom line is that everything has to have value. And I think that is what has been driving Tiffany all the time. I think that's what means that when you look at their pieces over time, they're never shoddily made. They're never shortchanging the customer. The customer always feels that they have value in what they've purchased. And I think that means that, that's why in the secondary market you'll find that Tiffany pieces will hold value against non-branded items, because that perception that that these values have transcended over time is really fixed in people's minds. It's as though they know Tiffany will deliver like they know the sun will shine in the morning. I mean, that sounds kind of big, but that is what underpins the value, that the fact that they've sort of edified and sustained this idea. And I remember watching Breakfast at Tiffany's when I was very much younger, And I remember the Holly Golightly character, played by Audrey Hepburn, saying, nothing ever bad could happen in Tiffany. And so there's that feeling of the enveloping, the attention to the customer and the product. And, when you do step inside some of these luxury brand stores, there is that sense of calm and being looked after, and that's important. That is important for people. People live stressed and busy lives, and so to be able to walk into a space where you're buying a piece which is probably consolidating some kind of memory or some kind of a momentous point in life, and you're entering a space which gives that moment that meaning, and it has to be calm and enveloping and attentive. And so all of these things are coming out in the way the brand speaks to you. And then when we sort of dig deeper, the integrity branches out into things like, most recently things like sustainability. Obviously, integrity underpins that, but even to things like having like a vertical supply chain where Tiffany control every part of the supply chain to make sure that quality is delivered, but also corporate responsibility is delivered. I was just on their website the other day, and I was reading about how they've invested millions in projects that are about conservation in the oceans. And they write press releases. Sometimes they get picked up by media channels. Sometimes you don't necessarily hear about them, but this is going on all the time. So there has to be that core of corporate responsibility, which goes back to the sort of integrity. Without integrity, that I think there is nothing. And so, the fact that they have been successful over nearly 200 years, I think is awe-inspiring. And I think that, you don't have to stick to things like tradition to have integrity. You can have integrity and be daring. And I think that there's been many times where Tiffany has been really daring, where they have, they've backed designers that were, new and up and coming and not necessarily known beforehand. I think they really captured a moment in the 70s, for instance, hiring Elsa Peretti and tapping into that sort of the sort of Studio 54 culture at the time, which was high glamour, and you'd get people like Sophia Loren and Liza Minnelli wearing the bone cuff bracelets, and even Jean Schlumberger at the time was very daring. All his sort of organic and floral pieces, inspired by wildlife and plants, that was quite revolutionary. And even if we go back to the six claw solitaire, if you look at the average Victorian ring, and we're talking sort of mid-late Victorian, the diamonds were all set quite low. Rings were big on metal, less on diamond. Obviously, the style has become sort of ubiquitous, but nobody does it as well as Tiffany do it. And then more recently, we had the hiring of Francesca Amphitheatroff. I don't know if I've pronounced that properly. But, she brought a real sort of modern female edge to the brand. Her Tiffany tea and hardware collections are just strikingly modern and wearable, and you can wear them during the day, you can wear them with jeans. The tea is just amazing because it's one of those designs you think, how come they didn't do that earlier? It's kind of beautifully simple and kind of obvious, but I think there is some kind of genius in noticing the obvious thing that other people haven't noticed. So the brand itself, although it can stand for tradition, I think it stands for tradition in values rather than tradition in terms of style or adhering to the same design principles. They quite obviously don't, and in more recent times, you've just seen a plethora of new designs. The lock bracelet, for instance, is just genius. And, obviously we would love to have some of these newer pieces in the collection. But as the old pieces get retired, they will become way more collectible. I'm wearing a very collectible Paloma Picasso ring set with a huge peridot at the moment, and that is from the early 80s. I don't know if you can see, my necklace is a Tiffany, vintage Tiffany from the 1960s. And so I think that sometimes it's what hasn't happened, or the things that haven't happened can be the most important things. So in 200 years nearly, the brand hasn't been trashed. And you could take it from me, somebody who's been building a business for a fraction of that time, like 5%. It's no mean feat. That means they haven't lost their way in all of this time. They haven't annoyed a load of customers. They haven't fallen out of favour. They haven't struggled to deliver. And I think I go back to integrity. If you haven't got integrity, if you're not true to your word, if you're not continuously striving to deliver excellent products and excellent service, then your reputation will go under. So I have a huge amount of respect for that. I've got a huge amount of respect for the craftsmanship, the attention to detail. I remember somebody once telling me that they knew somebody who'd worked in the workshop that the Elsa Peretti designs used in Spain, and they would check everything under a loop. They would check the polishing under a loop, and I believe that, because the product always has that luxury finish. When you get the links in a chain, for instance, whether they're silver links or gold links, you don't get gaps in the links. You don't get badly soldered links. You get an invisible soldered line, but you can't see the line. It's beautifully smooth, and you can look at lots of cheaper pieces that you will see a join, and so that all feeds into the value in the secondary market. And I think the thing that I wanted to end on, which I think sums it all up, is that you do not scrap Tiffany pieces. I've seen a lot of jewellery over the years that I've sort of had to say to people, look, your best bet is to scrap that and get the gold value or the diamond value. You just don't do that with a Tiffany piece, not even a silver Tiffany piece. And I think that says a lot. Thank you.